All right. I'll call the December 5th DRB meeting to order. First is agenda changes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add one more thing, paper or no paper to the other business,
Okay.
and that's the only one.
All right. If the board members can review the minutes of November 7th.
The first sentence of that rec field should be changed to Dennis P. noted that the applicants had provided testimony from the engineer stating the road appears adequate. Instead of what is required for the road is what was built, because that's really not true. And on the second page, Dick J. said that the road, as it stands now, is built where the Haystack Crossing Project single-family homes, plural, are intended to be constructed. That's all.
Anybody else have anything?
No?
Move to approve.
So moved?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, up next is Will and Colleen McKinnon, final plat review for a proposed two-lot subdivision.
All right, well, I'm Will McKinnon.
So we have a new, is there any way you can grab that mic right here? It's right here. They're having a hard time hearing people on TV, so you don't have to push a button or anything, just.
Okay. So I'm Will McKinnon, and I'll leave all the technical stuff to Jack. You know, we don't have any plans to do anything with the subdivided lot immediately. It was really all about, you know, getting in within the time frame, so that option wasn't foreclosed out forever. And I've relied on civil engineering and Jack to, you know, to do all the technical stuff. So I think probably it's best if there are questions that, I mean, I can try to address some, but it's not my field. That Jack can certainly address on our behalf.
Okay.
I'm hearing a deafening silence. I didn't have any issues with the staff report.
Nor did I.
And I, for one member of the board, have no further questions for the applicant.
Any of the other members?
I don't think so. I think the plans are pretty thorough. And we have a erosion control plan as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
True, yeah.
Well, I'll open it up to the public then. Anybody here from the public for this application?
I do run by there sometimes, and I like the mailbox.
I have one question.
Can you just state your name, please?
Chris Shea.
Yep.
I work for Green and Shea Ventures.
Okay.
Are you a neighbor?
The septic,
Are you a neighbor?
yes, neighbor, to the west. The septic, how far off is there a 20-foot offset? Is there a 20-foot offset? What is the offset for the septic?
What, from the property line?
Yes.
That'd probably be best for Jack
I
to.
was just gonna show, do you have a full-size copy of the plan that can put that wastewater plan on there?
Let's see, that would be, do you know which number that is? Or is it on this one here, but further down?
It's C1.1.
Just after that one.
Yeah. So they have a little. I believe this one here.
Well, my question was, is there a town ordinance that gives you the offset?
There's a state setback for
Yeah.
the tow off the system.
What is it?
We have 10 feet.
It's 10 foot.
Is this one?
Yes.
I can zoom in here if you need.
I'm just looking at the scale, and it looks like it's more than 10 feet.
Well, the trenches are 25, there's the tow, you have the tow and the trenches, so if you look right in here, there should be some setback dimensions.
That says 25.1.
I'm having trouble hearing you. So my guess is the audience outside is as well.
I'm gonna defer to I'm gonna defer to my old-fashioned plans, but the wastewater system was laid out for our state regs, and we have a setback shown along the.
It says 12.1 is what I'm seeing for the tow and 25 to the trenches.
Yes.
So it's a mound system, correct?
Yes, it's a mound.
And the state setback requirement is 10 feet, Jack?
Well, we have, the trenches themselves have at least 25 feet, the trench,
Yep.
yeah.
So you're saying this meets the requirement?
This is, we have a state wastewater and water supply permit in place for this system.
So we usually defer to the state permitting and setback requirements for wastewater. We don't have our own opinion.
I guess my question is, when I see the dark place, is that the mound?
That's a no disturbance area
Okay.
on the downhill side.
And
The
the trench-
trenches are right here,
Right there.
and there's a little grading on the uphill side, it's still a mound, so the piping is elevated above natural grade.
So the dark area is a what?
No disturbance, there can be no disturbance on the
Because they're
downhill side.
Wet area?
No, that's just it's one of the requirements of the, based on the soils and the, this area does have high water table,
Yeah.
so we've used pre-treatment, which helps break down the bacteria, and we have a long linear system,
Yeah.
which is part of the innovative and alternative design, which allows us to load the soils over a larger area, but with a smaller and single piping.
And what would your elevation be of the mound?
It's only a few feet above existing grade, a couple feet. If there's a, do you have a full set of plans? There's a section in the, oh, okay.
I don't.
So this
Basically,
is,
it's about 14 inches to the bottom of the trench and about 9 inches to the pipe, and then some 6 or 8 inches of material over the top. It's just a little over a few feet.
Okay.
and this whole lot is generally downhill to the east, right?
Downhill to the east, yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Kelly Shea, and
Okay.
I have a question as well. Where on your diagram is the property line?
Well, the easiest,
Well, we have a property.
the easiest, it's hard to point out, I'll point it with my finger. The property line runs right here.
Okay.
There's a stone wall. There's a corner to be set.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I do have a question, I'm not sure what I'm missing. It looks like the well shield and the wastewater isolation shield overlap. Aren't the well shields supposed to be outside of the wastewater isolation?
They can
shields?
overlap, there's distances for both, but the well has to be at least 200 feet downslope of the wastewater system. The shields can cross each other.
Oh, so the well is outside of the septic shield?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But the well shield goes over it, goes uphill.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm not sure what the purpose of showing a well shield is. I thought that was like supposed to be a keep out area of all wastewater.
Well, that's the thing, because you can't have a well in the septic isolation distance, and you can't have a septic system in the well shield, but those two pieces can overlap.
So you couldn't move the wastewater downhill to be in the well shield, the wastewater system itself.
Okay.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
Maybe, thinking of logic games, so how can they overlap? So I'm not dumb,
No,
but, and
it's just you
there must be
can't
an
have- you just
easy
can't
answer,
have-
but it's not obvious to me.
Well, basically, you can't have the wastewater system in the well shield. You can't have the well shield in the wastewater area, but the systems themselves, the well and the system dictate the setback, and the shields are protection zones. So there can be some overlap if it's uphill or downhill.
Okay, so in this case, they overlap, but the well is outside the wastewater.
Right.
And
But the
wastewater is-
wastewater is outside the well.
Yep.
And actually, most of the time, you are going to have, more
Overlap.
times than not, you have overlap than not.
All right. I'll have to study this more, but I'll accept everybody's assessment.
When you say shield, is that just an area?
It's an area. And if you cross a property line with a shield, you have to put adjoining landowners on notice. So we had the Armstrongs to the north got a letter, a certified letter, and basically the shield, the well shield, the protection for that crosses the property line. So the adjoining landowner would have to be notified.
It looks like the well and the septic both do, right?
Yeah, the septic does to the west.
And we send certified letters to the landowners. It's part of the state wastewater and water supply permit. And the reason is, if you want to know what the reason for this certified letters was, that, and the notification, the history was that people were drilling spite wells, putting them on a property line.
Okay.
And with the shield that effectively takes place around that, they would limit a neighboring property for the ability to put wastewater.
So I'm not questioning that you sent the letter, but I don't believe the Breens or Shea Ventures has gotten a letter. Just to let you know that.
Well, we have,
You sent one.
we have copies, and we have the,
Okay.
I mean, we got, that's a condition of the state wastewater and water supply permit. And that's why they ask you you have to send it certified.
So not hearing any other public comment, I would move we close the public hearing.
So did we talk about the road width needing to be widened, as mentioned in the staff report?
It's noted on there.
Yeah, it just has to be 14, and then just those areas you showed.
So, I mean, the plan is, the intent is to put it in as an order, right? So I guess as long as the applicant's aware.
Yeah. And it only has to be to that, the driveway,
Okay.
the lot 2 driveway.
Right.
I mean, now it's like 12 or so feet, so. Which is interesting, because in the original approval, and I guess it would have gone to your driveway, it was supposed to be actually 18 feet, but the rules have actually gotten leaner. You only require 14 in those pull-offs now, so it works out well.
So Greg, you made a motion?
I did,
And direct staff,
and direct staff, yes.
draft conditions of approval. I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oops, sorry.
You.
Congratulations.
All right, next on the agenda is Kevin and Don Francis, final plat review for proposed 2-lot subdivision.
Sir.
All you.
How you doing? Good.
Pretty much ditto what Will just said.
Do you mind grabbing the mic? It's right there.
It's right here, it's right here.
Thank you.
So, the town of Heinsberg is changing the zoning or subdivision regulations, and we just wanted to preserve the option to have a lot available for one of our children. Do you need us to take you through where the existing house lot is and where the lot is, or? I know you folks did a site visit.
Yep. I didn't have...
Very pretty spot.
Is anything happening with the back Belchinius lot?
In talking with the neighbors, our understanding is they may ask to reconsider the subdivision and unsubdivide it, but I don't want to speak for them.
I'm not sure we even have to entertain that as a board. They could just merge the lots, I think, administratively, but.
Actually, currently, there is a small part that you do, but in the regulation updates, if they come in like about 6 months from now, they may
Okay,
not have
well.
to. They can may be able to be done administratively. But for right now, they would have to come in.
Wouldn't the subdivision have to be nullified, like basically taken off the record?
It's now 2 lots, so they'd have to now merge the lots. And the current regulations, which is being updated with a lot of different, what they call housekeeping changes. But a few certain changes that will actually change the process. Right now, it's called a transfer of land, and it would have to come here to be deemed not a subdivision and then approved by the zoning administrator. The updated regulations will actually allow that to be just administratively done.
I didn't want to take us off the rails for this application. I'm sorry.
Yes. But anyway, go ahead.
So let's get back on track.
Sure,
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
So it looks like you've worked out the issue with the drainage with the neighbor. You're gonna...
Oh, I forgot to pass this out here.
Yeah,
Yes,
I had a brief conversation with Stan Hazelton about, he had some concerns and he had proposed moving the culvert, which I think.
Can we get an enlargement here, just so we can get a sense of what we're talking about? I haven't seen the property in a couple of years.
all right, I'm just trying to remember which one is, let's see,
This is, I assume this handout is the email that we got a couple days ago?
yeah.
Yes, I
Is
think
is
that-
this the one you want to, this?
You probably want 1.0 if you can find it in your plan set.
Sure. Actually, I think I have that up already.
That's the
Yeah.
plan, but
Right.
probably a better, okay, that'll work, but that's the one you want right
Right, so I think this is the Hazelton lot that they're referring to, just off of McGee Road. This is the lot we wish to create.
So that's uphill, Dawn, right?
Correct, this is uphill.
Yeah, so water's coming down.
Yep, here's our driveway. and they are concerned about the drainage that occurs on this culvert here. We aren't proposing to do anything different. However, I think Kevin met with Stan and indicated that we would divert and redig a trench so that it'll go on this property, our property right here.
So the
Some of
culverts
it will still have to go across their property, but we will try to work on putting some excavation so that it drains more onto our lot.
But the culvert's uphill from the new driveway you're putting in,
Correct.
anyways, right? Okay.
You can't make
Sort
water
of,
go on.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of level in there, so some of it'll probably flow there.
This is kind of a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we can't remember, but those culverts were actually there when we bought the property 40 years ago, so.
Right.
It's been draining down in there for.
Only Ted might remember that. Not even I was there.
So I think we have, you know, he was amenable to that possible solution, and so it doesn't look like it's going to be a difficult thing to do. So.
Well, is there anyone speaking for the Hazeltons?
He said he wasn't going to be here, so.
He sent a letter. Yeah. Did you see the email?
And you said that you thought that was a good alternative.
No, that's
No.
from-
That was my.
No, that's
from
Kevin.
I think.
I had talked to, I happened to see him when he was changing his seasonal decoration on the mailbox when I drove by after he had sent the letter. I didn't realize he had actually sent the letter. But he had told me then that he had been down, did he come down to talk to you and then sent the letter after?
So the water that they don't like comes through the culvert?
Yes.
And what's the proposal to deal with it once it gets on your property?
Well,
Or their property?
Eventually it gets on their property, but
It
Gets on
comes
their
back
property.
on our property eventually anyway.
And how does that happen?
because
Gravity
that's the-
or?
yeah,
Culvert
gravity
is right
mostly.
here.
The natural flow of
This
that
is
whole
their
area.
property line. There's a natural flow that comes from the Hunt property.
So you're on both sides of Butternut Lane?
Yes.
So it's gonna get
Little-
redirected back onto your property to the?
To the left of that well.
That's the south, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Right. Well, it's still gonna have to remain
north.
somewhat on their property. All right, you can't avoid doing this, but we're gonna try to divert it more onto our property instead of what it does now, just sheds this way.
So you'd be
Does
doing
the
excavation on that.
existing condition become worse with this
We don't think so.
subdivision?
No,
Because it's
Because the
uphill from
water
the
is
driveway
coming this
and the
way.
development.
right? And then the topography goes uphill. So
Yeah,
he
let me
was
come back to this
suggesting
one.
that you move the culvert. You can't do that because water's gonna, you can't
Go
make
where it
water
wants to
run
go,
uphill. Right.
So that's why you can't ditch
To the north.
out the lane, yeah, northwest,
Right,
because it
that's
goes uphill.
Right.
I do remember that he had put in extensive ditching around his house because of the current condition. I do remember that he was concerned that that would somehow be changed.
this came up in Balchunas, right? That's when we looked at it?
Yeah.
Seems like that was the first
That's the
time,
last time
yeah.
we were there as a
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
But I know that he said he'd put in considerable ditching around his house because of the flow.
So folks contemplating a condition of approval, is there something that you have in mind?
Well, essentially,
I mean,
that's
we-
what Don was just describing.
Yeah, here, I'll bring that back up here.
Right. It actually, so right now, there's a ditch that directs the water down into here. Some of it flows on our property, some of it flows on his property. We would take that and direct it more up here and bring it over here. The fact of the matter is, all the water flows back this way anyway, because that's the
It's
topography.
downhill for sure.
So this whole area is naturally wet. That's why there's 2 springs in here. Because that's where all the water collects, coming all the way down the hill from above us even. So we'll dig a ditch across over here so it'll flow down this way. So hopefully it'll clear up this wet area here, but.
Well, Mitch is the person who's going to have to write language. I mean, have you folks talked about what might be in the cards in terms of decisional language?
Have we?
Enforceable.
No.
That's why we're here, I guess.
No, I mean, basically, we can mention, this could be described as water coming out of, and I'll put like a description of that particular culvert. The applicant agrees to, or proposes, it would probably be first the finding. The applicant proposes, due to the concerns raised, to provide a ditch to move the water basically in that particular direction as he described. And
So
that would
Mitch, are
be
you
required.
comfortable crafting something, whatever it says?
Yes.
To basically accomplish what we're talking about amorphously here?
Yes.
You are, okay, all right.
And
And
considering that
actually, I'm
ditching-
doing more with what you just described as opposed to what you actually drew, because you're talking about coming more directly, more to the
Right, what I drew
west.
there was what actually happens today.
Mhm.
That's what that blue line is.
And you're
So-
agreeing to come
Right.
more out in,
Yeah.
basically where the word culvert happens to be
Right.
on this,
Yes, somewhere in there.
to provide a ditch on that. Yeah,
No,
I
there's
could
no
write something
issues
up.
with creating a order that requires ditching on someone, on a neighboring property? Because it's, we're not, normally when we do this, we're talking about redirecting ditching on the applicant's property. I mean, there's an agreement, or maybe we just have to say that we need the agreement from the neighbor.
If the neighbor
that-
doesn't want us to do it, then I guess they get what they currently have. I don't know.
But, yeah, I mean, maybe we just need a sign note with the neighbor that says he agrees that ditching can occur on his property. Because normally you try to remedy the stuff off of other people's property.
Well,
In
maybe
this
the
case,
question
because,
should be asked, is it possible to ditch up over here?
and I think the answer there was not, because the grade
too
goes
steep.
back up again, right?
It's too steep, right? Or, I mean,
It would basically create a hazard for your
you'd
road.
have to put up like dam wall or something to stop the water from shooting out of the culvert and
Yeah.
going onto his property.
You could require that prior to, well.
I'm
there's a
sure
few ways.
Stan will sign it.
So part of me says that, you know, this existing condition, this subdivision isn't changing this existing condition at all.
I don't think so.
The fact that, as part of it, we're willing to try to, improve the situation, that is all for the good, but I don't think, I think this subdivision is actually before that culvert, right?
Well, actually, I'd like to
Or
comment
is that
on
not
that.
true?
I think when you add impervious area, you do increase the stormwater discharge. However, they are proposing to put in ditching with check dams, which should equalize that.
Okay. Yeah, I
mean,
guess it
Jack,
is,
would
I
you
guess
like
it
to
is.
comment on that?
I guess I'm wrong. This subdivision is uphill of that culvert, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that driveway comes downhill to Butternut Lane, the new driveway?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, looking at the contours and looking at the distance and looking at the slopes and looking at possibly the invert of that culvert, there's probably the possibility to actually channel or put a flat 2% ditch on the Francis property.
Going that way.
Going east, northeast.
Yep.
And carrying it just a little and turning it slightly and probably putting a plunge pools and then let it sheet flow
From there.
to just the way it would just be a little grading exercise, but it looks to me like that is feasible.
I mean, coming this way.
Yes.
Say again?
Coming east, like just the way Mitch is pointing, that's about
Yep.
20 feet or 25 feet. You got
Yep.
about 4 feet to work with.
Seems like you've got enough
We
grade
have
there.
enough room to put a small ditch. Right now, there's just a little channelized shovel diversion ditch, and it's functioning, and it seems like with the site work that we would, or as part of the condition, that we would provide a swale to redirect the water to the east.
Which would be
And,
better than taking it across the corner of their property.
Well, it does two things. Number one, it slows the velocity down, but it's still going downhill. It's shallow ditch. And so we have a plunge pool, which actually just is a rock line pool. At the bottom, we repair the end of the culvert with a where the water falls into it instead of runs. And then that, similar to a stormwater pond, it has an overflow, which takes it down a shallow swale and directs it easterly and away from the Hazelton property.
It seems like that's a preferred.
That's why
way.
we brought him.
Yeah, I mean, that looked to me like it was doable. It's just looking at the site map, I haven't ever
No,
visited
it's,
that
I think it is
location.
doable, and I've been on site, and I looked at the culverts, and I looked at the potential impact of the proposed
So does that-
impervious area with Lot 2, and I really don't think that, I think with the duff layer, and I think with simple best management practices, probably the creation of new impervious area of 3 to maybe 4,000 square feet. It sort of depends on the length of the driveway and the configuration, that a lot with simple best management practices and some rain garden or something, there's really gonna be no new runoff created from the proposed structure and drive on Lot 2, and the water that gets somewhat channelized along the driveway will have grass swale with stone check dam that'll then.
So does
So
that
really,
mean-
really the water right now, it's a historic problem, and it's a concern for Mr. Hazelton, and I think we can solve that with a
Does
simple
that need to be
solution.
put on a site plan somewhere, not just in writing? Like,
We can put a grading, we can actually we can put the finished grade contours similar, if need be, similar to what we did on the wastewater system. I would just leave that up to Mitch and the Francises, and how they want to proceed with that, and you, of course.
I mean, that would usually be like stone check dams are usually put in it as a
Yeah.
drawing. So
They're in
I
this
could see
drawing.
how the
This
plunge
detail's in
pool.
there already, a plunge pool is a very simple detail.
Yeah.
It's just something, it's a standard detail. It's something we could add as part of condition of approval, that we could say that a ditch and a plunge pool detail will be added to the plans to redirect water from the existing 18-inch culvert
I would think
to
it'd
the
be
east,
prudent
and try to divert as much water from the Hazelton property as
because that way it's a
practical.
known feature and it can be maintained in the future. Yeah. Okay.
And then if I could, there's only one other thing. I know you're concerned about the building envelope and how much gets cleared. We would like the flexibility. Right now, the power line runs right here. You can see it's kind of near where the preferred house site is. We would like the flexibility to maybe move that power line. It might come this way, but just recognize that we'd have to remove some trees in order to accommodate that.
If power line serves your house?
Yes.
And our neighbors.
I was gonna say, so it keeps on, I'm trying to remember from the site visit, but it
Yep.
keeps on going.
All the way to the end of the.
Okay.
Yep.
And if it's moved, would it be put underground from that point? So it's above ground to
Right.
that point, right?
We've been exploring underground. It's significantly more expensive than above ground.
We know that. There's a lot of ledge here too. Isn't there a lot of
Yeah.
ledge here?
Right.
How far does it go? Is that another,
If you go to the plat, which is.
Quarter mile, half mile?
P1, you can see the whole power line and where it goes underground, if you'd like to see it related to all the properties.
Which one?
P1, that one right there. And if you.
Actually, let me move out this.
Move that up.
P1 shows the power?
Yeah, it does. We have the power line, there's an easement. for
Right.
it.
So here's the power line. Here, goes through lot 2 here, crosses the road, comes up here, and then goes underground to our house.
Underground to the neighbors.
And then underground to the neighbors.
That's
Serves
Balchunias
those-
to the right.
Excuse me?
Balchunas to the right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
over here.
Balchunas is right
But
here,
it doesn't go to Balchunas, it goes to the Mortons.
which is here.
And so sorry, that's what it does now, or that's what you
That's what it
propose?
does now.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Alchunas gets their power from
Another direction.
This way.
Okay. Okay, I was mistaken then, because I was thinking when we were on that property during the site visit that there was a power line that ran like all the way across the property.
above ground stops.
No, again,
Before,
overhead from Butternut to this lot here, then it crosses Butternut Lane, then it comes
Oh,
up
yeah.
here.
Yep,
And
okay.
it then goes underground from here to our house, underground to Morton's.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That rings
So
a
you're
bell
just
now.
saying, hey, that stretch just before it crosses the driveway would basically link to the other location alongside the driveway.
Right.
We like run up the road, basically.
Yeah. And that would be overhead as it is now? Yeah.
So you're talking about moving that pole that's in the corner of the building lot
Right.
We'd like
Down-
that flexibility.
down towards the road?
Yes,
In other words, have it like somewhere around here,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
and then just have that as a line that goes from here
correct.
straight across to there.
And then how would it feed the proposed new house? Underground?
Yeah.
From one of those two poles?
Right. So again, I know that that's a sensitive topic with you folks in terms of tree clearing. We'd at least like to preserve that option.
But the bulk of it is overhead, it runs with the driveway, it's already cleared, so there's not a lot. It's not like an open cut, 25-foot open cut.
You'd be going along the driveway,
Yeah.
Butternut Lane,
Correct.
yeah.
I'm sure the power company would rather have it there anyways.
I don't know.
We had originally asked them to do it that
They didn't
way
do it that way the first time. so it's not-
They'd rather
We
go up in the
drove up.
woods, huh?
30 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't do what we asked them to do.
Rascals.
I know.
All right, do the board members have any other questions? Is anybody here from the public?
Make a
No
motion to
more?
move.
Close the public
Close the
hearing?
public hearing and move,
Direct staff.
direct staff to write
Decision.
conditions of approval.
I'll second it. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for what you do and sitting on these hard chairs and well into the evening hours.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right, up next is Jillian and Joseph Bartolo. Bartolo, okay.
Yep.
Conditional use review for the renovation of existing barn.
Correct. So my husband and I recently purchased the property of 572 Tyler Bridge Road, where there's a barn built in '08 from the previous owner. It has an accessory apartment that they finished that exists in part of the barn, and we would like to propose changing the conditional use of the property to an inn so that we can continually finish the remaining interior of the barn.
I'll just change that. You want to add.
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 Okay, sorry. I would say when we purchased the property, it's currently framed. There's exterior windows and doors in place, and there's a wastewater system from the state for 3 bedrooms. So,
Three, actually listed as 3 accessory apartments,
correct,
which are only allowed to have 1 accessory apartment.
correct.
And you're looking to do the others as an inn.
Right, without full kitchens, I believe, to meet the standard of a short-term stay in those 2 additional spaces,
Okay.
if
How
possible.
do you get a state wastewater system and potable water supply permit for something that's not permittable?
That's a great question. I have the same question. I don't really know the answer. When we purchased the property, I admittedly, we were a little confused because we were under the impression we could create 3 apartment situations, but clearly we want to fall within the guidelines, and I think 2 short-term stay areas with less than full kitchens is satisfactory to us, but I don't really know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I guess, it's more rhetorical, I guess.
So did you see the staff comments about the 2 proposed pull-offs?
I did, yeah, and we're happy to do that.
Okay.
I think they were supposed to previously have been done, but they're actually partially cleared in my opinion, but we're happy to bring them to a further driveway standard or whatever we need to do.
Well, basically, right now you have a 12-foot wide driveway, and in those locations, you need to just expand that for, I forget the exact number, I think if it's like 30 or 40 feet, you have to expand it out to where that section is an 18-foot wide driveway. This way you could have 2 vehicles passing each other.
Okay,
So it's adding 6 feet of gravel
Gravel.
onto the side of where those happen to be.
and those are 40 feet long each, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that requires the same gravel base for the roadway, driveway?
Yes.
All right. And landscaping? Question of credit for the existing.
Correct. I believe we're proposing that we do not need to add additional landscaping based off of the existing landscape on the property. That would fall within the credit of the 3%? Is that
Right, the amount
Mitch?
that we mentioned, and we looked at the property and we circled we circled these areas here where there appears to be some landscaping which is blocking any of the lighting and such and activity, because the activity is taking place in this area over here.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that this landscaping blocks part of what's going on from these people. There are trees that are here and beyond over here, but these trees over here appear to block the view of the activity here from some of the properties over here.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the thinking behind that. I mean, and I think you mentioned to me that if that was acceptable, that you would be willing to plant a few trees.
Right. I don't know how to, I don't want to get myself in trouble. I mean, we plan to plant more trees, but with a budget in mind for this project, I feel there's a lot of existing wooded areas already, and that maybe that wouldn't be a current requirement to have that done by the time this renovation is done, if it's approved.
Right. I'll just mention there's obviously trees here on a hillside. There are some trees that are in this area as well. So,
Yeah, I can point out more of them if we're interested up at the screen. Do you guys want me to do that, or?
Sure.
You good? Okay. So we're still new to the property. We're only been there for 1 season, but there's a whole line of poplars here that's on the property line that blocks all of these abutting neighbors nicely. Spoke with Kathy and our new neighbor here. There's some willows and these are some fruit trees. And I'm not quite sure what these trees are, but they don't show up too well, but they block her pretty nicely. We talked to her about the existing lighting and are not proposing to put anything additional on the backside of the barn that she would see. And then
Is that Kathy Breyer's property?
Yep.
I'm just trying to orient myself.
Yep, this is her pool.
Yeah, okay.
This is her house, this is her barn. And then I also spoke with Missy, I believe she's the town clerk, because
Yeah.
I think she lives right here.
She's off Gilman Road somewhere.
no, she's actually.
I don't know, she wasn't on the list. I don't think she's in.
She's on the list.
Oh, she is?
She's on Southwind.
I think this is her.
Yep, it is.
She was concerned about a couple of lights.
Right, so we did some testing. It's actually, she can best see the one that's on my main house that lights my driveway here where I park. And we tested the existing floodlight, and she said she actually couldn't see this one even with the leaves gone now. Because they did offer to make changes and maybe do a more downlit situation, but she said it's actually this one, so
Where do you access the barn currently?
Currently, there's a stairway off the back here to access the accessory apartment, and then there, in about the center, is another just main door up an existing set of stairs to the space I'm proposing
Okay.
we renovate.
So it's mostly to the west and to the north.
Correct. And a light exists on that covered portico there,
Also
a
on the
down
stair
light.
at the end? Is that stair exposed on the end?
This one is correct, and that's where that floodlight actually points down on the stairs. And I think maybe could be altered to be more directly on the stairs. And then you can't see the other, I don't think the people across the street are not considered direct abutters maybe, but there's 8 acres of woods and a ledge.
As you mentioned over here, there's the lighting.
Right, so there's a little covered porch here with a recessed down light. And then there's a flood here that kind of directs into the yard and the driveway. And then this is the main house, and that really directs here. So the 2 lights that I was proposing were possibly gooseneck downlights on the side of the barn that only I see. I thought that might take some of the pressure off this floodlight and look pretty. So, is that good?
So there's 2 decks on the one side?
Correct, they exist and need some love. They're kind of falling.
So I don't want to be nosy, and it's
Sure.
not directly relevant to the application, but just out of curiosity, there's a market for this kind of opportunity?
There seems to be. We have been Airbnb-ing the existing accessory, just following the what the Grillos had previously been doing. They were kind enough to share with us kind of the setup and the website that they had set up. So we've had great response.
Is the traffic for seasonal?
It does seem to be for seasonal. We've only been there since September, but I had bookings in September, October, November, and now December. So it seems to be, I mean, leaf peeping was busy.
Yeah, sure. Hope it
I'm hoping
sustains itself during
ski
the
season is good.
during the winter months.
Yeah, just need some snow.
So are there different state permits required for an inn?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just
Has that been researched?
No,
mean, like,
not by me, no.
ADA stuff and things like that?
I honestly don't know the answer. I did check the windows, the existing windows, to make sure they met egress and the stair width, but I do not have the answer in terms of,
It may
You know,
not be
as a se-
directly
as a s-
relevant to our application, but it's something you
right, as a second floor, I don't know that it would
you
meet
should
all
be looking
ADA
into
standards.
just out of self-protection.
So I don't think we've had many inn.
I don't think we've had
requests.
an inn.
Okay.
As
Didn't
far
you
as I
have
remember.
Morrissey on Swamp Road? Wasn't that an inn?
Was it?
I don't remember that.
I mean, it's a little before I came here, but I just remember issuing a zoning permit for that.
There is a bed and breakfast that we've had, like, is that the same thing?
No.
No.
A bed and breakfast can be inside the, well, actually would be in the main house, where when you go to an accessory
That's when you
building,
go to an inn?
that's when you have to go to an inn.
Okay.
And there'll be ample sewer and water capacity for residents staying there.
That's already in place with my understanding of the permit and the, there's
Oh, right, right.
separate septic system for the barn, which is actually sized so that it's large enough to take over 3 bedrooms and the 3-bedroom existing house in the event that the main house sewer ever had issues.
I'm happy with the proposal. I just want to make sure you've done your due diligence on kind of the little snags in state regulations and so forth. respecting this kind of accommodation, because there could be, I'm not saying there are, but there could be a few surprises. And just make sure you dot your i's and cross your t's before you invest a lot of money in that.
Okay.
I'll just add that as part of your packet was the water wastewater approval as well as the certification after it was actually built.
Well, did I see is the approval in there? Sorry, I didn't look at the
No,
digital.
I didn't put a draft approval in there, just the staff report.
You did? I saw the,
Oh, you talking about the water wastewater approval?
I saw the certification, but not the approval.
Oh, right,
think
I
the last
believe I did put
page.
that in there.
Oh,
In the-
oh, it could be it's in there, but I'm still looking at paper.
Okay.
I think it's the last page of the packet.
No. I think we put that in there.
Fixed waters.
Well, I, for one, as a board member, have no further board comments or questions.
Nobody here from the public, I don't believe.
Looks pretty empty.
Actually, maybe we didn't give it to you. They did get a state permit.
Yeah, I read that. I didn't.
Right.
May have been in the Dropbox only.
That's where I was living, but.
Okay, there's no
Yeah, I'd
request
second
for any
what Greg-
signage.
Yeah. I'd second what Greg is saying, that, you know, when it comes to public accommodation, I think that's really worth looking into before you, at least on the state level, building codes, that sort of thing, access. It's worth talking to them.
Okay.
Can you explain where the parking actually is on them? I couldn't see that on the site plan.
Put up your parking plan.
So you can park 2 cars back by those exposed rear steps that do not block the first 2, 3, and 4 garage spots. And then you can also park spots 7 and 8 near the main house and still have access to garage spots 6 and 8. Does
So
that
there are
make
garage
sense?
spots in the barn?
Correct. There's 4 garage bays
Oh, okay.
on the first level of the barn.
So where are all the apartments on the second floor?
The existing apartment is on a second floor in the rear, and the proposed apartment
On
are
the other side.
in rooms are on the front too. So yeah, you can see, sorry about the screen.
Yes, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Those are the 2 spaces that face, 2 garage bays that face the house, and then you can kind of see down the side the 2 that sit
Yeah.
on the back side of the barn. And then the day that I took this photo, I think there happened to be some people in the apartment, so you can see how 1 car is parked beyond the garage bays here. I'm not sure what that person was doing at that time, and then that's one of our cars that was parked outside those 2 garage
So
bays.
the first floor is just all open, just
Correct.
garage,
Just, yeah, concrete.
room for the doors, okay.
Okay.
That was my question. I just couldn't, I didn't know there was parking underneath. I thought
Sorry
that's
about
where
that,
the first
yeah.
apartment was. No, I was like, how? Why is there cars like inside the building? Yeah, it makes sense. Great.
Deafening silence.
Yep.
Well, with the exception of that, that we ought to put a condition that the applicant shall meet all state code requirements and obtain required, any required state permits for the proposed use. I don't have a problem with the site plan or the conditional use.
So where do we fall in the landscaping? That there was enough?
I'm fine with it.
I think so.
am too. This
Okay.
is a pretty isolated neighborhood, and there is a lot of screening.
Okay. I
Natural
just
screening.
didn't know if we ever finished that conversation.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Okay.
You're right, you're right.
We got distracted to where like so-and-so lived and then we never got back.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and direct staff to write this decision of approval.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there's my condition right there.
Thank God for this.
Thank you.
So we'll move. Do you wanna do the, paper, no paper first, or?
We can do that if you'd like, just basically, now you've had the chance to, use the iPads. Do you still want to get paper copies?
I'm good to go with that, as much as I like paper, but,
You can drag me kicking and screaming into the 21st century, but I'll
I thought you'd printed all that stuff yourself, Ted.
well,
You know?
I may still do that. I have figured out the Dropbox thing.
I confess that I look
Except-
over Ted's shoulder from time to time.
Except I can't get Dropbox at work. I have to get it on my phone and then send it to work. You know, so it's like.
And I don't know if you've noticed, I sometimes throw stuff onto Dropbox as it's coming available. So if you
I
ever want to
noticed the
look.
different dates. Yeah.
So actually, I don't really look at Dropbox. I assume you move everything that's appropriate into the,
Yeah.
into the, whatever, good reader thing.
Well, that's Dropbox.
Aha!
Well, okay.
It's another
I mean,
name.
you get the email and it says Dropbox, and it looks like you could actually go to Dropbox.
Right,
Again.
And
you
then-
have that link if you want to,
Okay.
but it's still.
Same data.
It's the same data, it's the same thing. It's a link if you want it.
So
or
this
have-
stuff isn't stored somewhere on a town server?
It's actually stored right on this laptop.
Oh, wait. That's
But
not.
I thought Dropbox was an external server.
It's an external. Basically, this laptop, when it's connected to the internet, has a connection with the, in essence, the cloud Dropbox that you would then connect to. So when I add something to it, then it connects to the cloud, and then you can access it through there.
You're uploading
Okay.
files to the Dropbox, or syncing.
Right. Correct.
You're pulling it back down.
From the Dropbox.
Right.
I just have kind of like a computer question that I'm sure someone could answer for me. But and I don't want paper, but how do you know when there's more than one map under like a map? Do you know what I mean? Like, so for the Francis final plan submittal, there's like, yeah, there's like a bunch of,
Oftentimes, and when you're basically opening up a PDF,
right.
and
But
it
how
will
do
tell
I
you
know?
how many. It will tell you how many pages are actually on it, or you just go to the side and scroll down, and
Yeah,
just
go
keep
look at the scroll bars here, I think, you know, and if the scroll bar is completely full, it means there's only one document. And if
What
the scroll
scroll
bar,
bar?
on the far right, see up there on the upper right of the screen? See the word comment? Over there on the right-hand side?
But
find one.
There's an arrow there, that means this is just showing one drawing on that.
Let me find
I
one
don't
that
see
has
that,
multiple.
Fred.
I don't have that.
So on the,
Oh. Yeah, it's not the same. They don't have Windows.
Yeah, let me here.
There's 6 sheets in the PDF.
That's the way to know it. That's the best
Right.
way to know it,
Here.
I think. The one of 7. When it opens up. That, never mind, that's
Yeah, but Sarah,
the best way.
here's one with multiple sheets.
But
And you can scroll.
but that's because you are on a laptop. These don't look like that.
Oh.
We don't have a scroll bar.
I think what would help maybe is when you title the drawings, like I often just use my phone.
and you only see the one of one when you.
I mean, I
actually
could
get
put
the-
If
in
you
like.
title, you just sort of, in the title say
disappear.
7
You don't see the
sheets
one
or.
one, but if you
Yeah,
add-
could you do that when you
Sure.
label them?
But even on your phone, if you open a PDF,
Yeah,
you'll see, there'll be up on the top left corner, like one of whatever.
okay,
Um,
even right now.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, on
So I can put
on
like.
this, it is for.
So like for Francis final plat submittal,
You see one
maybe
of
you,
7.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, that's
Actually,
pretty
what'd
clear.
you show?
Yeah,
that was helpful.
There's a 1 of 7.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you just throw all
scroll
the-
across.
But for multiple ones, I might put like at the end of it, P7 for 7 pages, or
Yeah, that'd be great. Just because sometimes when I'm reviewing, I don't know to look.
You can always swipe too and see if there's anything under there.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. But I just didn't know if there was a way that I was missing.
And once you start swiping, it'll tell you what page
Usher.
you're on.
Yeah.
So we all good with no paper?
Yes.
All right.
Although Dennis, you had an interesting idea before as far as having a couple of printed sets, either for the public or for the board, just in case, left out of
Wouldn't we
you.
always have sets for the public,
Yes.
at least going forward into the foreseeable future? I think we should.
And there's
Not
somebody
suitable for the board, because they wouldn't have had a chance to review them before.
Well, it's the same thing.
Oh, if for some reason somebody forgot to bring their computer with them or something.
Or has a problem with it. You know,
Except we have a responsibility to be informed, and the public is just curious.
All right, we'll move. Oh, you got another question?
I was just gonna say, and I'm also okay if you wanna stop sending to my Yahoo and just send to the new, what is it, Google or whatever, Gmail.
Okay. I'd be happy to send it to a bunch of emails and such, but sure.
Okay.
All right. Town of Heinsberg rec fields. Yeah.
It seems like we have to tell them that they need to have a new deeded right-of-way.
That's the subdivision approval, the modification to the subdivision approval.
Okay, you don't think, we don't need, oh, so,
It's three different decisions. As Ted just said, as far as, one of them is modifying the subdivision, the final plot.
oh,
And that's basically to,
Show that the road
to basically create a new access easement per the as-built condition. And also to provide the areas of the drainage easements, to show those little areas that go beyond, south of the parking area. There's some drainage structures that go beyond the property. So it's a combination of correcting one easement and adding the other small drainage easements for that. Stream buffer, since you're changing the conditions of,
oh, okay. So the
that.
final plat is just the two lots being created, but doesn't the final plat include the right-of-way?
right, but it's moved. And that's what they have to adjust.
Yeah, but is it already moved? Or it wasn't moved in the plans we saw, right? I don't think so.
No.
Well, I could be wrong, but,
They have to move it to match it where it's the center line. The center line would be there.
okay, and they need to get a deed that reflects that, right?
They need to update any deeds.
So the deeds get updated as part of the final
Although actually,
plat?
I'm not 100% sure the deeds need to necessarily be updated. It's the, well, actually, I mentioned the deeds would have to be to reference the correct plan.
Right. So does that need to be in order? Or,
So order one talks about the access easement and the drainage easement.
right, right, so this is the plat.
The revised plat.
Well, I guess that's something that has to be done, but maybe it's not part of the plat review. The fact that they have to get a new deed from Bissonets.
Which one are we talking about now, Ted?
Final plat,
Okay.
Subdivision revision.
revision
approval.
to final plat approval for a two-lot subdivision. Does it need to talk about the need to revise the deeds? or not? That's my only question.
No, I don't think technically, because without revising a deed, you can still change an easement, which is a private contract.
But aren't right-of-ways spelled out in the deed? I thought there was like, you know,
Not
corner
necessarily.
posts and things like that, that spelled out where the right-of-ways were.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They could be, but, and I don't know what the deed here says. But I'm assuming here that the revisions to the easements that are reflected by the as-built scenario are acceptable to the Bissonnettes. So I'm not sure we have to do anything more with this from a legal point of view. I'm not sure it hurts to require more, but from a minimally sufficient point of view, I'm not sure there has to be a revision to the deed. And I don't think there does.
Okay, okay.
Just by easement, they can take away rights and grant rights.
I had one correction on conclusion 3. The proposed changes do not affect this project's apostrophe, not projects plural. That was the only change I had there.
Any more discussion? I'll make a motion to approve the draft as amended.
Final plat?
Final plat approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have no problem with the site plan one.
No, I have nothing there either.
Interesting.
We're on the site plan one now, okay?
Site plan was the most extensive one because
Yeah, I
it
know.
it takes everything else.
Right.
I guess I had some problems with it.
Okay, good.
There was no mention of, first of all, in finding of fact 4, you list the things that they wanted to change, and there was no mention that they also wanted to waive the portion of the landscaping budget that they weren't using due to the cedar hedges. Well, I don't.
You know,
It's just that he was
actually,
listing bullets of the things that they wanted to
And you
change,
know
and it
what,
wasn't
that's a
listed
good,
there.
it's a good thing to add. Waive a portion of landscaping. Actually, it would be more, not, maybe it's just the way to say this is eliminate cedars.
Because you did, yeah, okay. You did sort of say that when you talked about the revised parking lot and landscaping, so
Yeah.
generally, that's kind of including the cedars, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of the thought to it, but we can spell it out if you want.
I mean, there is a finding in 13 dealing with that.
They also, I can't remember where it ended up about the trail.
That was,
They talked about it and you said, no, still build it.
yeah,
Okay, and they said, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we don't need to mention that that was a request and that it
thought I
should be
mentioned
built
it.
as on original plan.
I thought I mentioned it and said basically that,
Did.
yeah,
Where?
that's not,
So they have to build it.
6.
Yeah.
6, okay.
And basically, they're just going to kind of mow something for now. Am I
Yeah.
not
And
right?
that's all
Right,
they
but it
really
just
need to
said
do.
it shows of future public trails. It doesn't say that, and this shall be built or something.
But
It
then
should be
that
built
become- but
as
that-
original or,
but then that kind of goes back to the original approval that is not being changed.
okay, perfect. I just didn't,
Yeah.
I knew that was a request and I didn't know if we had to address specifically that it was not granted.
Well, yeah,
Well, that's,
realize-
as I remember, that basically was discussed. And the thought was, well, why can't you just simply, because all it's going to be is just mowing that particular area.
Yes, that's what,
And they also had concerns as far as it being something to nowhere, where we kind of had to remind them that actually placing it will create the requirement for the connection.
That's it. I just wanted to know if it had to be in there. And it doesn't because it's part of the original. Perfect.
And just FYI, the first, conclusion, actually the first conclusion and in the order, it tries to say here, like in the order, all provisions and conditions from prior town approvals that have not been specifically revised shall remain in force. So just make sure that, because obviously there's a whole grouping of prior decisions that.
We're not reiterating.
The board has a collective memory that will not surrender that point to them. We'll notice that it doesn't get done.
Okay.
The standing orders are in place.
So as far as the landscaping budget, let's go back to that one. I wasn't on board with allowing them to waive the budget. I wanted the money to be set aside, because they're not done with the site.
Right.
I wanted that money to be set aside to be used in some other fashion on the site.
All right.
And we seem to sort of, we don't explicitly say they can waive it, but in number 5 of the conclusions, you say this development was originally planned to be built in conjunction with the Haystack Crossing development, which has not occurred and will not occur in the near future, comma, the landscaping that was to be placed to screen the parking lot from Haystack shall not be required. And I'm guessing that sort of also implies that they do get to waive the landscaping budget that would have been spent on that.
Did I misinterpret that? What was said?
Yeah, you can say, however, the landscaping budget shall be retained.
So yeah, my proposed would be will not occur in the near future, period. And then while the landscaping that was planned to screen the parking lot is not required at this time, the unused portion of the landscaping budget will be retained to be used toward future site improvements.
Shall be retained.
Shall.
All right. Let's see. Haystack development is not required at this time.
However.
The unused portion of the landscape budget shall be retained
Unused, I'm sorry.
to be used toward future
Used
site improvements.
portion of the landscape being budget?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Shall be retained.
Shall be retained.
To be used toward future site improvements.
Shall be retained
landscaping?
for future
landscaping.
Landscaping improvements, yeah.
Landscaping improvement.
Yeah.
Future landscaping.
Period, right.
Future landscaping.
Unless altered by further order of this board.
Yep, that's fine.
Unless altered. Unless altered by the DRB.
So do we need to have an order then that they shall put the money into escrow, or is it sufficient to just say in the conclusion that?
How are they gonna put the money in escrow? I mean, they just keep getting a little bit of money at a time to do what they're doing? At what point? Do they put the money in escrow?
At some point, they had to come up with the total sum.
Well, they don't get it all at once, though.
Well, maybe it's just funds are reserved.
You know what I mean? They keep
I
getting
know what you
money,
mean.
then they do a field. Do they not do the field and keep the money in the bank and then wait till they get more money and then do it?
The only way you could do it is a percent. Each time they get X amount. Every
So
time they get $100, you gotta put $1 aside.
There's a
That's the only
sum-
way you could do it.
I mean, there's a
Not
sum of
sure.
money that was related to the cost of the cedars that we're allowing them to forego for the moment. So
But then-
whatever that total cost is what needs to be.
So should we instead say when a future development comes in, then they have to landscape? I mean, I don't know how.
We've never had a trigger like this before, I don't think. I'm not sure we need to do it with the town.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to turn into an enforcement issue, but I'm not sure this is markedly different from any other scenario we've had.
Honor system.
I think we should leave it the way Dick wrote it, and that.
But that's the question that is, I think this is a good point, is when would this actually come into effect? Because it kind of
We're not
says,
giving a
at
date.
some point in the future, this is going to be requested. Do you want, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but do you want the town to come back at some particular point to,
So yes, if they add bathrooms, when they add any additional site, I mean, they have to make site changes to add
then
bathrooms and
I
things
would
like that, right?
recommend making an order that says something to that effect. That, because here you have a conclusion that you're saying it has to come back, you know, that it needs to be done in the future. You should follow that up then with an order that says, sort of what you're saying, is that when
site revisions are made, well, I mean, actually, no, before site revisions are made, they must come back to the DRB.
But what if they never make any other site revisions ever again? What if, the way they have it right now on this decision, they do the first field, they got a CO for the first field, permit the next two fields, they follow the rest of the decision as it is, and they never, I don't know, was there, I forget whether there is already a porta potty or whatever, but let's just say they absolutely do no other particular thing with this. Do you want, how would they actually ever bring this back?
And the money would be sitting in escrow.
I'm just simply saying.
The reality is it's gonna be sitting in a budget line item that says landscaping, it's not gonna be sitting in escrow, because we're not requiring it to be sitting in escrow. We're requiring the budget to remain part of the project. That's what, I think, am I right?
I want the money to be available.
But that's the whole thing. It's like, there doesn't seem to be a trigger to ever utilize that.
It would have been simpler if they just put the cedars in.
Well, I mean,
Really?
that'd be the other trigger that, or a trigger is when.
Well, do we have to sign off on anything after the second field is done?
No, I mean, after this, at this point,
Is this the last approval?
this is going to end up being, all the other sign-offs are going to be administrative. The rest of the work would be done by the zoning administrator and the approvals. Because you're talking about, I think, one additional approval and 2 certificates of occupancy.
I mean, we could put a condition in that says, upon completion of the last installation of infrastructure, presumably the last of the fields, the applicant shall come back before the board for a review on landscaping in relation to what is being developed in the adjacent properties, and we could take it up then.
Right, although it could also end up being that, and here's the other aspect of it, and this is where, this is kind of, I guess, this odd duck that it happens to be, is the rec fields could be completed, and you could still have the same situation where Haystack Crossing is not being
No,
built.
I'm anticipating that. And maybe at that point, we would say, money needs to go into escrow.
I wonder if now, with what you're saying, if you can make that into one order, that perhaps saying something to the effect of, once within 90 days of, 180 days, within a certain time frame of the CO for the second for the last of the rec fields, and or in combination with development.
Mason, not to cut you off.
Go ahead.
But maybe it would be a good use of everybody's time tonight for you to come up with something, and then several minds just kind of brainstorm it over the next few days. We can kick it around.
But do you see what I'm? Where I'm going?
Yeah. No, I think there are several ways to go about this, and instead of trying to decide on one line of action in 5 minutes here,
Right.
maybe a little more reflection, and with the assistance of draft language, would help us kind of reach a consensus.
All right, so basically, though,
Come up with something, and then we can massage it.
And just to get the details on this, just so this way here, we're talking about after the last CO.
Would they need a CO?
Yes, this gets a zoning permit, so there'll be a CO with it. After the last CO, and I'm just going to say a factor of other development. Either come back. Basically, the answer would be come back with revised landscaping or put money in escrow.
Just come back with something, and we can kick it around.
Okay. But if that's the only thing, just let me know if there's anything else with this particular decision.
That was my only issues with this one.
Okay.
So we're
So
going to
site
shelve this
plan,
one.
Move to approve as amended?
Well,
We
wait,
haven't seen the,
no, we haven't seen the revised language yet, so you can't approve it as amended.
Oh, yeah,
right. So do we have, we don't have time for this one to wait till the next meeting, right? So we're
No,
going to have
because
to
you've
approve
already
through
gone.
email?
Right.
We don't have time?
No, because, or actually, wait a second. You might have up to 2 days on that, but I'll
This
email
can-
you on
this
that.
So which one is it? We're doing site plan?
Yes.
It says the matter came before the Heinsberg DRB to revise, when did it come in? Closed it closed on September 19th.
But then it was reopened.
Oh, right. So then we had November 7th.
November 7th.
Yeah, 45 days from then, right?
Yeah, so.
So I have time?
7:30, let's see, this is 28.
That would be December 22nd, I think.
Yeah,
You might actually be, I think you
Yeah.
might be able to do this at the next
on the
meeting.
17th.
Do we have a next meeting? We have
So-
stuff scheduled for that?
Yes, you
Yeah,
have
okay.
Willett and Campbell,
Okay.
which was continued to,
Yep,
to that.
All right.
okay.
So, conditional use approval for stream buffer.
I guess my only question was under the findings of fact 4. I was a little confused by the change of the road being listed in this one, since I thought it was just related to the stream buffer, but as I read on, I understood where you're going with it. So,
Okay.
so other than that, I didn't see anything.
Okay. Move to approve.
That's written.
Yep.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Two out of
All right,
three.
next is Caroline Spade and Carol Taggart.
It's the one with the wells.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I had one typo in findings of fact 4. About halfway down, we have the permit approved included the use of existing wells on the neighboring property to the south for potable water. These neighboring landowners, oh, maybe that is, they're right. I was gonna say the neighboring landowners. Question whether or not, yeah, I think it should still be the instead of
Yeah.
these.
I'll knock out the SE, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the only thing I saw. The rest of it looked good to me.
That sounded good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Move to approve?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next is Randall Kay and Marjorie Meyer.
Which one was this?
This is
That's
the one
the other
where they
camp
were
that's,
taking
you can
out-
see from it.
Across
Yeah.
the bay.
Oh, yeah, the
Right, they want to knock it down,
the
rebuild
peninsula.
it.
Yeah.
Move it a little bit.
And then rotate it a little bit.
And make it less non-conforming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks like
And it's
they're
built
gonna
on a peninsula that is entirely in the 75-foot
Yeah.
setback.
So,
Okay.
I had a
I
little
was
piece I wanted
worried
to
when they
add.
say trust the excellence of the architect, but I'll go along with this one.
Under findings of fact, I just wanted to note that they did talk about some portion of the structure could be a single story. So under findings of fact 4, about the third last sentence or there, the applicants are requesting to build a new 2-story structure with a more typical roof, which will have a maximum building height of 30 feet. I'm proposing adding another sentence in there. A portion of the new structure will potentially be a single story. Don't know if it's necessary, but
I don't know if it is because they're looking for conditional use to do this. And if you end up wanting to come in for a building permit that's smaller, that's not usually an issue.
Fine.
What we could say here is build,
I mean, I think it would help the massing if there was a portion of it as a single story.
Yeah.
And I kind of somehow want to say that at least under the findings of fact, there's no order or anything, but it was discussed that they
How about the
architecturally could
applicants are
consider.
encouraged to,
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think in many ways that's sort of more concise 2-story structure that's a little bit smaller in footprint than what they have there right now, and you know, is less non-conforming as far as setbacks are concerned. I don't know. Wouldn't be a requirement I'd put down, I guess.
Well, yeah, I'm not making it a requirement, so I'm not putting in a conclusion, I'm not asking for an order, I just wanted to say it was discussed.
Yeah.
That a portion of it could be a single story.
No, I'm just reacting to what Sarah was saying, which was encourage.
Oh, yeah, because that would be more of a conclusion or order kind of thing.
I mean, the minutes will reflect that it was discussed.
All right. Strike it.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any news and announcements?
Just letting you know that the only thing we have on the next meeting, besides the several decisions from tonight, would be Willett and Campbell, which I'm expecting to be, I haven't gotten any new materials from them, but it was continued to that particular day, so
That'd
there
be
will
the
be a
last
meeting.
one too, right?
That will be, yes, that is the very last of these 2-lot, 10 to 12 acre subdivisions. So, although part of me thinks that there's a possibility that they may not be completely ready. So we do need to have a meeting in 2 weeks from now, although it may not be a very, very long meeting.
So if they're not ready, you're not gonna let them come to the meeting, right?
If they're not ready, I'm gonna tell them just continue it again, and, because it's not one of these that they could be dismissed and come back, because it's now past the deadline.
If they're not
for-
ready, we still have to, we would still have to act on a continuation, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any news on Hannaford?
I have spoken to them, and right now indications are they are looking to go forward.
Well, going forward means coming back to us for a subdivision revision approval. Is that not necessary?
Well, because
They're-
they-
I don't think they know yet.
they're
They gotta have a
investigating
hearing
that.
First. Aren't they gonna have a hearing?
I mean, it was pushed back down to the lower court again, right?
What do they call it?
Right, I think they're still trying to figure it out
Status hearing.
legally, what they legally have to do. But they
Well,
may,
it gets remanded to the environmental court. The environmental court, my belief is, can't act on one issue without it coming back before us, because it's only an appellate court, it's not a court of first instance, and for some reason, and I don't, Mitch, you weren't involved at the time. I'm just wondering how this whole issue about the subdivision setback requirement not getting before us ever happened.
setback from the
from
canal?
the stream.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they didn't apply for a permit or a. They didn't apply for a waiver of that setback or a revision of the setback, and I'm just wondering how it got caught, because staff didn't catch it, nobody on the board caught it, nobody in the public, and it seemed to have just come out of thin air in the environmental court.
I can't answer that. I wouldn't know.
And so nobody knows. I certainly don't.
That's well before.
But the
I was
environmental
thinking
court can't deal with that in the first instance because it only reviews our action, and they never came before us for a revision, and that would be the first step.
Which it's
I
very
think.
possible. Maybe, I mean, again, I'm speaking here, I really don't, but maybe it's possible what they may have to do is come back here to revise the original subdivision.
I think that's what they have to do.
And if that's the case, then it really would be almost a very simple thing to say the stream setback was 75 when this was first subdivided. The regulations changed to bring it down to 25.
I don't think it would be that simple, because I think those traffic issues would be wrapped up into any further review. Because, again...
You're more knowledgeable of this than I would be.
I think all of that stuff would have to come back. My thought is, so I don't think we're done with Hannaford, if they intend to go forward.
So the zoning requirement was modified to a lesser distance? Is that the way that worked?
No, there was a subdivision in the approval of Giroux that had a 75-foot setback from the canal.
Yeah.
And for some reason, nobody caught that was an issue with the as-designed Hannaford proposal. It didn't come before us. They could have applied with all their other applications for a revision to the subdivision, but they didn't. So and staff didn't pick up that there was this setback in that subdivision regulation. There's another issue that the Vermont Supreme Court resolved, whether it was obvious, whether it was really a setback requirement, and the Supreme Court said it was. So maybe Hannaford applicants were saying, we don't really think this is a setback issue because the requirement in the original subdivision was not clear enough. And maybe they just figured they could skate by that way. I don't know. It was never addressed by us.
When did they have the hearing here? Do you know what year that was?
7 years
What
ago.
years?
How many years ago?
It spanned, I think, 3 years, like 2011 through 13.
I mean, when the first hearing happened,
2010.
Yeah, so,
No, and they invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. And I'm just mystified how this got missed.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause my
there was a time
recollection
when it
is-
was pointed out, that 75-foot setback.
I'm sorry?
There was a time when that 75-foot setback.
When it was pending before our board?
Yes, yep.
But there wasn't
it was overruled, as I understood it at least, by the town requirement or the zoning requirement that had it only at 25 feet. I mean, it was on drawings that there was a kind of a line along the canal.
Well, I don't remember that at
75
all,
feet.
and I think that would have been a huge issue if it had come to my attention. So
I don't know. I
that's
just
news to me,
remember.
but
Yeah.
that is ancient history.
I know one of the folks that was involved on behalf of our GH was the one that sort of read that and pointed it out and brought it up to the Supreme Court.
Well, it's interesting. So my guess is we're going to be dealing with this in the near future.
so we have to get ready for the big meeting hall upstairs.
Yeah, we're building a new meeting hall.
Hannaford is gonna pay for
Which
it.
is actually kind of funny because the select board is not, they've arranged it where they want to meet the same way that you meet here, because most of the meetings this room would actually accommodate.
Yeah.
So they're actually going to be moving down here for select board meetings. Be really kind of funny now, we'll switch places for a little while, if that were. But it's interesting, my thought here is I'm going to be looking at this thing if it comes all back with some fresh eyes.
You
So-
lucky duck.
I get that fun.
How many board members were on there?
Are we out?
Yep.
Okay.
Adjourn.
I did.